Okay, here's a little movie I'm playing with the Purdy formula calculator, the one that I came up with. This one is kind of a what if, where it allows you to change a whole bunch of different things and see the effects. You can also input the numbers that you actually measured from the barrel, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to get to the required harmonic. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the barrel length. That's this guy right here. Everything's at 0. We're selected the 9th harmonic. So let's say we have a barrel that's 23 inches. And we hit 23 and enter. This tells us, with no attachments whatever, that for us to get to this guy, which is the 9th harmonic, we need to have a new barrel length of 25.875 with the attachment, not the bare barrel, but something to extend that barrel's length so that we are on the 9th harmonic at the crown of the bullet exit. So let's just play with the barrel lengths for a second. There's a 23-inch barrel, so it's got to be almost 26 inches long with whatever you attach to the end of the barrel. Let's see what happens when we go, say, to a 20-inch barrel. Now it needs to be 22.5 inches. Let's say we have a 28-inch barrel, a really long one. Now it has to be 31.5. Now that's for the 9th harmonic. Let's go to a 22-inch barrel and see what it does. So it needs to be 27.75. That's the distance from the bolt face to the end of the attachment. Now let's just play with the harmonics on that 22-inch barrel. So we had to add 2 3/4 inches to the end of the barrel to make our 9th harmonic. Let's see what happens when we go to the 7th harmonic. Now we have to add 3.67 inches for the 7th harmonic. Left the barrel at 22 inches. Let's go to the 5th harmonic. Now it's 5.5 inches. Let's go down to the 3rd. Now it's 11 inches. So what that's telling you, we haven't changed the barrel at all, just looking at the different harmonics. The lower the harmonic we choose, the further we're going to have to extend the end of that barrel to be able to hit that harmonic. Now, obviously, let's go back to the 9th. And we're back to 24.75. When we add something to the barrel, chances are it's not going to have a hole in it the size of the bullet, so we need an attachment ID. So let's say we've got a tube with a 1/2 inch inside diameter. So we enter 0.5. Now we see that our physical length has changed to 24.6. Let me change that back and you can see what that ID does to that physical length. 24.75. We're going to use a 1/2 inch opening in the tube. 24.6. So it changed it a little bit. Alright. Now we need to have this 24.6 with our 1/2 inch opening, so it's telling us we've got to add 2.6 inches to the end of the barrel. Now that's the distance from the barrel, the end of the barrel, the muzzle, to the end of the attachment device. Okay, so we're going to call that added depth. We're not messing with a tuner right now. We're just saying this is the length that the device has to be in front of the barrel. So we're going to put in 2.6. Okay, now our change number goes back to 0. And we have 22-inch barrel with a 2.6 inch extension with a 1/2 inch hole. Gives us a 9th harmonic, and there's our physical length, 24.6. This dimension here, these are the 2 dimensions of our tube that we added on, call it a bloop tube, whatever, to our 22-inch barrel. Alright, now let's look at a tuner. Let's say we've got a tuner's depth is 2.5 inches from the end of the tuner to the muzzle. Now, this muzzle depth to end of tuner set at 250. We've already set our tuner to the number 250, which is a mid-range of most of them. That's the middle part of their adjustment range. But let's change this ID to 0.6, which is closer to what the Harrell's nipple is. That's the ID of the inner tube that the main body spins around. We want the 9th harmonic. So it's telling us we've got to change our tuner by 70 thousandths. We need to make that tuner, that nipple, 70 thousandths longer. Well, the nipple doesn't move, okay? So we can't just crank the tuner from 250 down here to 320 because it doesn't change the length of that nipple. Now some tuners, that nipple is recessed inside the body opening, which is substantially larger to screw in an added weight. So let's say we have that recess is 1/4 of an inch below the end of the tuner opening when it's set at 250. I've seen some Harrell's tuners like that. So what we're going to do there is we're going to change this ID. I don't know what it is, but let's just call it 1.1 for the heck of it, an inch 100. Now that's with the nipple being 1/4 of an inch in from the end of the setting. If the nipple was flush with the end, we still have to stay with that dimension, 0.63. Okay, so okay, we're 61 thousandths off, but if we adjust the tuner out to 320, we're still within 1/4 of an inch of depth of that nipple opening if it's flush with the end when it's set at 250. If it's recessed 1/4 of an inch, then that's all we've got to do is just turn that tuner from 250 to 311 and we've got the length we want. Okay, but let's say in this case we want to get away from that, so let's add 1/4 of an inch added depth, 0.25. Now we're going to be on the larger diameter, and let's say that hole in that weight is 0.900. Okay, so here we got a problem. It says minus 270. It means we've got to turn that tuner all the way down to 0 plus another 20 below it. So what we'll do in this case is we're going to find a little different harmonic to work with. Okay, because we're bouncing right around that critical area where the attachment that goes on the front of the tuner needs to be further away from that nipple. So let's go down to the 7th harmonic. That's a little longer wavelength. So here it says we need to add 647 thousandths. So we're going to add some weights. Stay with the weights. And let's make it the depth of those weights 0.900. See what happens. Okay, now it's telling us our change is only 3 thousandths. So all we ought to do is turn that tuner from 250 down to 247, and that puts us right on the 7th harmonic. That's with our 22-inch barrel. So let's say we got something really long on the end. Let's say we've got an added depth of, say, 6 inches. Okay, and let's say that opening is 1.5 inches. Alright, still got our 22-inch barrel, and our tuner depth is, still 2.5 inches. But now the opening ID is the end of that big tube we added on there, and that's 1.5 inches, and it's 6 inches long. At the 7th harmonic, we're 5.283 inches too long. So we're going to drop down to a lower harmonic. Let's go to the 5th harmonic. Now we're 3.5, so let's go to the 3rd harmonic. Now watch what happened. Okay, back to the fifth. We're 3.5 inches too long, so we drop down to the third, which is as low as we want to go, and now we're 2.05 inches too short. So our 6-inch added tube is, you know, a couple inches short. So let's add 2 inches there. We're gonna say add, it's a 6-inch tube, let's make it a 8.050. Now we're right on our third harmonic, okay? So our attachment total depth, that's all the way from the end of the attachment, the tube, the tuner, everything, to the barrel, is 10.5 inches. But it leaves our tuner set at the midpoint at 250. So let's see what happens if we're, say, using a longer barrel. Let's call it 25.5 inches. And we want to go back to that 9th harmonic. Alright, so at 25.5 inch barrel with our 2.5 inch tuner and an 1.5 inch opening and 8-inch tube hanging on the end of the tuner, we're 7.8 inches too long. So let's just take that tube off, hit 0. Now we're 238. We need to be 2.238 inches longer than just the bare tuner. But we had that opening of that attachment. So let's go down to the 900, which is a little weight. Okay. Now it's telling us we're 418 too long. So let's say we had a weight that was about a 1/2 inch long. So on our attachment ID, we got 900. The added depth is going to be 418, but let's say our weight is a 1/2 inch, so we'll just put 0.5 in there. Now it's telling us we're 82 thousandths too long. So all we got to do is turn the tuner back from 250 to 168, and we're on the 9th harmonic. Let's say we go to the 7th harmonic. Now we have to add an inch. So let's add another weight. We'll call it it's an inch weight, adds an inch of length. So we'll make it 1.5, which is the total of the two weights. Now on the 7th harmonic, we're only 20 thousandths off, so we're just going to, it says a minus 20, so we're going to go 250 less 20, that's 230. That's our new setting. So here's a case where the addition of a couple of weights on a little bit longer barrel with an ordinary tuner length. These tuners are different lengths, so you gotta be careful. But we can just set the new tuner setting with a couple of different weights to either the 7th or the 9th harmonic. When you get into these lower harmonics like the 5th, now we got to start adding some serious length to them. Okay, so let's go back to our ID for the attachment. We'll go back to 1.5, and we need to change this 1.5 inch depth on the attachment to another 2 inches. So let's just go to 3.5. Now we're 75 thousandths too long, so we back the tuner setting up from 250 to 175. So that's the 5th harmonic. Let's say we want to go to the 3rd harmonic and change that to a 3, and we're 6.3 inches too short. So let's make this guy here the longer. We need to make that tube a lot longer, so we're going to add 6.3 to that, which is 9.8. And bingo, there we are on the 3rd harmonic, back at our 250 setting. The total depth of the attachments is 12.3 inches. That's with a 25.5 inch barrel. So you can plug in the harmonics, the ID, depth, tuners, stuff like that, barrel length, whatever you want. Play with the numbers you want. And this will actually allow you to go to a harmonic that is not exactly 3 to 9. It says the instruction says desired harmonic enter hold number from 3 to 10. But let's say you wanted a different harmonic, like 4.8 for whatever reason. It spits the numbers out. So you can play all kinds of what if scenarios you want and test them on your gun. And who knows, maybe you'll come up with a magic harmonic number that shoots all the bullets no matter what speed in the same hole. Nah, I don't think that's going to happen. But anyhow, it's fun to play with. I'll post the link on the page where I posted this file. It's an Excel. It's a real small Excel file, so if you've got an app on your smartphone that works with Excel files, you can just load it on your smartphone and take it with you to range, play all kinds of games. But by combining different lengths of attachments, just make sure you pay attention to the ID thing. So anytime you have two different attachment lengths and one's within 1/4 of an inch of the other one in depth, you need to use the smaller diameter, the smaller ID. So if you got a Harrell's tuner where you're set at 250 and your nipple is flush with the end and you put an 1/8 inch extension on there, you're still wanting to use the smaller ID. Now if you add a 1/4 inch extension, then you want the larger ID. If you've got one of those Harrell tuners where the nipple's recessed when you're set at 250 and it's like 1/4 of an inch below the outer diameter, then you want to use the ID diameter of the tuner body where the weight or add-on device screws into, not the nipples thing. There's two places you can attach things on those Harrell tuners. And there's other tuners out there. I don't know, what their dimensions are or how they do it, but anyhow, it's a little explanation on how to use this thing. But the beauty is you can just plug in these numbers, and you can only change stuff that's in the green cells. You can't even click on anything else here, so it's all protected so you don't accidentally wipe out the mathematics on the thing. But you can choose any harmonic you want. This added ID, don't worry about it. I put that in there for another function. It doesn't do anything to the formula right now, so don't worry about that. You can put any number you want in there. It doesn't affect anything. But the most critical number is the barrel length. Try to measure it as accurately as possible. Depth of your tuner or your attachments, whatever, that's real critical. The attachment ID or stuff like that is not all that critical. It's relatively small change on things, but any added depth that there. So really this formula is really looking at lengths of everything combined to come up with the physical length. That's this guy down here, this 31.761. That's the total length measured from the bolt face to the end of your attachment. And your attachment ID is almost always going to be the last hole that the bullet sees before it leaves the attachment, that diameter. This new tuner number down here, that's based on your tuner being set at 250, so when you play with these numbers it'll tell you the new tuner number setting. Obviously you don't have a tuner setting of -5,789, but that's where you're playing around with these attachment lengths. When you get those close to right, then you drop this in the range. Hopefully you want to be around the 250 mark, so you got plenty of room to adjust one way or the other. So all the instructions, explanations are basically there. Like I said, it's a simple little Excel file. You can put it on your computer and print out all your different combinations, take them to the range with you. There's at least 4 spreadsheets that I know of. They're all set up a little differently, but they all use the same mathematics behind this stuff. So, pretty easy to use.